if I go to the live session, I'm expecting it to start right away.
Click on the link.
And what is the link?
It's on the email.
Yeah.
Is on the email?
Yes.
The beginning 4 minutes. I wonder why there's a 5-minute delay.
I think so. Yeah, like everything looks okay to me.
Yeah, it's like, try again. Is it recording?
It says live now. It's a different link though. I don't know why.
Different link?
Yeah. This is live.
Okay.
But I don't know
Can you
why.
reply with this link to everyone?
Yeah, but I'm not sure why is it doing that. It's pretty weird.
Just reply to everyone with this link.
Running on a brief slide.
Yeah. And now, oh, that's weird.
As we ready to get ready, inshallah, if this is our mailing list, if you would like to get emails from us, notifications, inshallah, write down your email legibly, please, because I always sometimes have such a hard time reading the emails. Wallah, and I end up with an email, a wrong email, and it keeps on bouncing back. So please make sure you write it clearly so that I can decipher it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور ثم الذين كفروا بربهم يعدلون وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بشر وأنذر لا خير إلا دل الأمة عليه ولا شر إلا حذرها منه فصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. نسأل الله جل وعلا أن يبصرنا بالحق وأن يمن علينا بالالتزام به والثبات عليه حتى يتوفانا وهو راض عنا. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وقلبا خاشعا وعملا متقبلا وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك أن نضل أو نضل أو نزل أو نزل أو نظلم أو نظلم أو نجهل أو يجهل علينا. اللهم آمين. All praise is due to Allah Azza wa Jal. We praise Him, we worship Him, we seek His assistance, we seek His tawfiq. O Allah, teach us that which is beneficial to us and give us the tawfiq to apply it in our everyday life. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gave us the tawfiq to get together once again in this blessed circle of ilm on this blessed night of the 22nd of Dhul Hijjah of the year 1437 since Hijrat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which translates into September 24th of 2016. Like I said, we covered all of wiping over the khuf. We covered it in gory details. We actually repeated it twice, I think, over the last couple of weeks. But I understand that it was a little bit confusing to some people. There are a lot of details in it, right? And I got some feedback that although I tried my best to, clearly explain it, and I understand that we're not, this is some material that we may not have seen before, we may not have learned it before, so I understand that it could be a little bit confusing. That's why I decided to kind of ask several questions to test our understanding and see how much we learned, how much we understood and absorbed. With that said, obviously, just very quickly, I think we talked about the wiping over the khuf, right? From the aspect of evidence to it, right? We proved that it is legislated, and we said that this is actually an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal, rukhsa min Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. And we said that it is evidence in the Quran, in the Sunnah, right? And in the consensus of all the scholars of Islam, right? And we also there is a time frame for it, right? Whether you are journeying or whether you are in town. And then we said also, we talked about what nullifies wiping over the khufs, right? And then we also talked about, I think we also talked about wiping over other types of covering. For example, the turban, we talked about the splinter, right? Which in the cases of injury, right? Splinter maybe or bandage may be necessary. Also, we talked about wiping over the hand cover for the woman. Talked about all of that, right? Good questions, few questions, to test our understanding and see if we're good on the understanding. All right. We talked about, let me ask you to pass this, I think it should be working now. Abdullah? Barakallah feekum. We talked about the fact that the socks, right, can be compared to the khuf, right? And we said that wiping over the socks is permissible because we drew the analogy to the khufs, right? Why are they, there is an analogy between them. Why are we able to compare the socks to the khufs? There is an important point that I mentioned several times. Because the reason I emphasize this, to be frank with you, a lot of people, their reasoning is that, if you're not able to wipe over the socks because they're not made from leather, because they can get wet, right? So you're not able to wipe over the socks. But we said that doesn't matter. What matters? What was the important point that we drew? And we said this is why we can compare them. Anybody remembers? Come on, ya akhwan, barakallah fikum. Ghafar Allahu li wa lakum. Come on, we mentioned it multiple times. All right, let me answer this question. The answer to this question, because believe me, you might actually get asked that question. And I know you're gonna be asked that question. If you tell others it is permissible to wipe over the socks, they're gonna ask you. But it's not made from leather, or it may get wet. And the answer to that, this is not why al-masah on the khuf to begin with is permissible. The masah on the khuf is permissible because it is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal. Not because of what the material it is made of. Not because of the color it looks. Nor is it due to the fact that it doesn't get wet or not. This has nothing to do with it. The reasoning that Allah Azza wa Jal allowed us, permitted us to make masah on the khuffain is because it is a rukhsa from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal, so that it is not an overburden. It is not an inconvenience. It is not a hardship that you have to take your khuf or your socks every single time you need to make wudu. That is the reasoning. That is the illah. This is the reasoning behind the permissibility of making masah as opposed to having to wash your feet. It is convenience from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal, so He doesn't overburden us. Remember we talked about this, right? Is that reasoning shared with the socks or not? Yani, does it matter if it is socks or if it is khuf? Is it not? Is it not, in both cases, inconvenient to have to take them off to be able to wash your feet? It is. They are similar. They share the same reasoning. It is inconvenient to take the socks off as it is inconvenient to take the khufs off. Doesn't matter. This is made from leather and this is made from cotton. It doesn't matter. That's not the reason why al-masah on the khuffain is permissible. The reasoning is because it is inconvenient and sometimes even hard. It is a hardship to take it. We gave a lot of examples. You hear it all the time. I hear it all the time. People find it so much hard at work, at companies, right? You go to the restroom, you need to relieve yourself, and then you need to make wudu now. People are looking at you. Some people can't do it, and they end up delaying their prayers to the last minute. And during the short days of the winter, they may even end up combining prayers unnecessarily for a long period of time just because they can't make wudu at work. Some people miss the prayer because of that. Subhanallah. Why? Because of wrong reasoning. We have to understand what the illah is behind the permissibility of wiping over the khuf, which is made from leather. And we said that in both cases that is shared with the socks that are made from cotton, it is inconvenient. And it is hard sometimes to take it off. So it is ease from Allah Azza wa Jal. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Another question. We said al-masah on the khuf can only be used to purify from minor hadath. Can you make masah on the khuf if you are in a state of janaba? No, it doesn't work. You have to take them off. You have to make ghusl, right? You cannot make masah on the khuf. When can you make masah on the khuf or on the socks? If you go and relieve yourself, if you pass gas, right? Any of the different types of minor hadath. Al-hadath al-asghar that we talked about before. Right? Remember, we said there is minor and major hadath. So you can only make wiping over the socks when in cases of minor hadath. When can you wipe over the socks? If you put them on while in a state of tahara. Yani you have to first make wudu with washing your feet and then put them on while in that state of tahara. And then you can make masah. What are the duration for the masah? And what are the two cases?
Within the city, 24 hours.
Where's the microphone? Because there are people online and upstairs. Right. So there's the resident and there's the traveler. For the resident, 24 hours. 1 day and 1 night. And for the traveler, 72 hours. 3 days with their 3 nights. That's 72 hours. Time. Now we know how long we can wipe. When does the wiping period, time limit, when does it start though? Let me give you an example. Here's the test, right? Somebody, right, woke up for Fajr, right?
They made wudu, they prayed Fajr, right? And then they went right back to sleep. They woke up at 7, let's say for example. They made wudu, right? And then they went to work, for example. For dhuhr, they maintained their tahara, their purity, right? For dhuhr, they went and made wudu with masah, not because they had to, but because out of sunnah. Remember we said the sunnah to make wudu, refresh your wudu, even if you don't need to, for every prayer. So they just refreshed their wudu by wiping over the socks for dhuhr, not that they needed to, but as a sunnah act. They prayed dhuhr, right? Shortly before asr, they went and relieved themselves. Now for asr, now they need to make wudu and for asr prayer. So they made wudu by wiping for asr prayer. When does the time limit starts? When does that, so they're a resident obviously. We have 24 hours period of time. When did it start? Did it start when they made wudu before dhuhr? Or when they woke up actually? Did it start when they actually put the socks on? Did it start when they made wudu with wiping for dhuhr, even if they didn't have to? Or does it start when they made wudu with wiping after they relieved themselves for asr? So now we have 4 different time points, right? And there are hours in between. When does the time frame starts? When do you start counting? From the wudu that you made for asr prayer. Ahsant. How about the wudu that you did for dhuhr?
You were already there, but that's a sunnah.
So it's a sunnah. It's not a wudu that you did with wiping after a hadath, after an impurity, minor impurity. So it doesn't count. You start, ya akhwan, rule of thumb. The counting start from the wudu that you do with wiping after you relieved yourself. Now some people don't use the restroom that often, right? They maintain some people, subhanAllah, the nature of their body. They maintain their purity for a long period of time. They may make wudu for, when they walk up, right? And they put the socks on, and they maintain their purity until Maghrib. Yet they were making wudu with masah for every prayer as a sunnah act. Right? But the time frame starts from when? From when they actually make wudu with wiping after they relieve themselves. When they must make wudu. Clear? Time. When does it end? We said 1 day and 1 night for the resident, 3 days and 3 nights for the traveler. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say somebody started wiping after they relieved themselves, right? Made wudu with wiping at a certain period of time. Let's say 5 p.m. on a day. 5 p.m., shortly before 5 p.m. the next day, right? Now when does it end? At 5 p.m., right? Shortly before 5, let's say 4:45. They went to the restroom, they relieved themselves, they renewed their wudu with wiping over the socks. Now at 5 p.m. the period ended. What is the status of their wudu now? I want another hand. Can you pass the Jazakallah khair. What is the status? What is the state of their wudu?
Yeah, it is valid.
It is still valid. Why?
He did before 5 o'clock.
Why?
He did before
Ana,
expired.
consider I am somebody who doubts. I'm challenging you now. Why do you think it's still valid? But the time period's ended.
But you did before 24 hours expired. That's why
Yes, but at 5 p.m. the time frame ended. So how come that my purity is still valid?
you did before wuzu, before 5 o'clock. So it's valid until you go to other, whatever I was saying.
But again, the time frame ended. If somebody challenges you, right, and says the time frame ended, Rasulullah said 24-hour period of time, it's over. How is your wudu still valid after that?
Because you made already wuzu before 5 o'clock and you...
Yeah, but somebody logically thinking, he would think that at 5 p.m. khalas, you have to renew your wudu now. You have to take them off and then make wudu with washing your feet. There is a reason why it's still valid. It is valid, you're right.
Yeah.
But why? Somebody challenging you, you have to answer.
Because you relieve
yourself before and then take wudu again. So your wudu is still not.
But at
invalid.
5 p.m., shouldn't it become invalid?
Yeah.
The time frame ended.
In my opinion, somehow I'm not sure.
No, we're not talking by opinion. We don't
Yeah,
go by
I know,
opinion.
but-
We go by the proofs.
But what it is I think is.
Let me refresh you just in the interest, I'm sorry, in the interest of time. Ya akhwan, the reason being that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he set the time frame for what? For wiping, not tahara. He said you can wipe for 24 hours, for a day and night. So that time frame that expired is for wiping. Beyond that 5 p.m., you cannot wipe anymore. You cannot wipe anymore. So you have to take it off, make wudu with washing your feet, and then you can put the socks on, back on, and then wipe again. But the time frame ended, that means you cannot wipe any longer. That has nothing to do with the tahara. Tahara is not nullified. Remember, the tahara, we said when we were talking about the wudu, we said we talked about the nullifiers of wudu. Is the time frame expiry one of them? It's not. It has nothing to do with it. Remember, he said, the hadith said, جعل لنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يعني Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he set a time frame for us for masah, not for the purity. Tahara is intact up until you make hadath, impurity, minor or major impurity. Another similar one. Here's another question. Is it understood, ya akhi?
Yeah.
You have to answer and you have to provide the proofs. The time frame is not for tahara, it is for the wiping. Another similar question, right? Let's say, for example, you made wudu, you wash your feet, you put on the socks, at some point you made masah, right? After you relieved yourself, you made wudu with masah on the khuf. Now you took your socks off. You just took them off. What happens to your wudu? It is still intact. Why? But you took the place where you wiped off. How is your wudu still valid?
Minor hadas, no hadas. It's still valid because you didn't make any minor hadas.
طيب, that's correct. But what is the proof though? I took it off.
Taking the socks is not a nullifier.
It's not a nullifier. Taking the socks off is not a nullifier of wudu. What is urinating, going and relieving yourself, passing gas, etc., etc. These are nullifiers of wudu. Is taking the socks off a nullifier of wudu? It is not. The second proof, we said that the tahara that is established by wiping over the socks is evidenced in a authentic evidence from the Quran, from the Sunnah, from the Ijma'. Is there any proof in either one of those three? Is there any evidence that says that it is nullified by taking the socks off? There's nothing. There's nothing. Yani Rasulullah ﷺ never said, and it must have happened, like we said before. It definitely must have happened. Somebody who took their khufs off. Never, ever Rasulullah ﷺ said that your wudu is now nullified because you took your khuf off. So something that was established with a shar'i evidence cannot be nullified by doubt and by hesitance, or there has to be a proof. Third one, if this is not enough, a third one. We said this is in comparison to somebody who went for umrah, for example, right? Now we said that tawaf requires wudu. So somebody made wudu, they went through the tawaf, they went through they prayed 2 rak'ah behind Maqam Ibrahim, they went through the sa'i, they're done with the umrah, they shaved, right? Alhamdulillah, umrah done, may Allah accept. Now dhuhr came. Is their wudu still valid? But they wiped over the hair and the hair is gone. Khalas, they cut it. They shaved, remember we masah over the hair, but the hair is gone now. There's no hair anymore. So the place of the wiping is gone. What happens to their wudu? Perfectly fine. There is absolutely no imam or alim that says it's invalid. Likewise, you made masah over the khuf. The khufs are now gone, or the socks. That's fine. But the purity is still maintained up until you nullify it with a minor impurity. Is that understood? Correct? طيب.
عن علي بن ابي طالب
نعم.
توضأ فمسح على نعليه ثم دخل المسجد فخلع نعليه فأمن.
Ahsan, this is one, yes, I saw that athar. He said, Akhuna Abu Abdullah, Barakallah fi, there is also one narration from Ali ibn Abi Talib who made a masah on his shoes, right? And then he went into the masjid, he took them off at the door, or before entering the masjid, and then he prayed. Like he made, masah on the shoes, and he took off the shoes. That doesn't affect his purity. The purity is still maintained. Type. I think that should be it. The last thing that we talked about in terms of wiping, we talked about wiping over the splinter. We talked of wiping over the turban, al-imama, and we talked about wiping over the cover head for the woman, right? And we said that it is permissible to wipe over the splinter. Somebody gets injured, right? In the arm, in the leg, whatever it is, right? And it is an organ that needs to be wiped, right? Obviously, it's going to harm it. You cannot, and you're not going to be able to reach the organ. So it is permissible to wipe over the splinter, right? And you have to wipe over all of it. Like you wash the whole organ, then you wipe over the whole area that is covered by that splinter. And we said there is no time limit. We actually contrasted between wiping over the splinter, right, al-jabira, and wiping over the socks. We said there are some differences, right? Wiping over the socks is time limited. Wiping over the splinter for as long as it's needed, right? We said wiping, or the khuf is limited to the foot, right? You don't wear this anywhere else, right? But the splinter can be anywhere. It could be on the arms, it could be on the leg, right? It could be anywhere, right? So you can wipe over it wherever it is, right? And then third, we said that, remember, we talked about wiping over the khufs only in the cases of minor impurity. If you are in a state of janaba, you have to take it off. But in terms of the splinter, right? You can do it either way, even in the cases of major impurity. And also we said that for being able to wipe over the khuf or the socks, you have to make wudu beforehand and then wear them, right, while in a state of purity, right? But the same thing doesn't apply for the splinter. Even if they put it while not in a state of purity, you can still wipe over it. We also talked about wiping over the turban, and we said also that is legislated because of Rasulullah ﷺ himself doing it. He wiped over the splinter, and we said that this is from Hadith al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah. We said that what is required is to wipe all of it or most of it, right? And it is highly recommended to wipe over the hair that is not covered, whether it is from the front forelock or from the sides, right? The turban or the imama may not cover all the hair. You have to wipe over all of it or most of it, and then wipe over the hair. It's recommended to wipe over the hair that is not covered. In addition, obviously, to the ears, like you do in the wudu. We also said, unlike wiping over the khuf or the socks, right? The previous purity is not required. So you can wipe over it even if you didn't put it while in a state of purity. And we said also, unlike the wiping over the khuf, there is no time limit for it. So you can wipe for as long as you would like to. And we said the reasoning behind it is that it is not easy. It is difficult to take it off and then put it back on. That is the reasoning. Again, it is an ease from Allah Azza wa Jal. How about the cap and the hat? And we said the shimag, like Akhuna Ammar, Barakallah fi, is putting. Can I wipe over this? No, I cannot. Why? Because it's so easy. Take it off in 1 second, put it back on in 1 second. That's it. Khalas. So you cannot wipe. You cannot compare al-imama, the turban, to the hat or the cap or any other types of covering to the head that is so easy to take off and put back on. The third one, we said that, wiping over the head cover for the woman. Also, we said it is permissible. It is better not to wipe over the head cover, al-khimar. But if it is hard to do so, if it is hard to take it off and then put it back on, sometimes if she is in a public area where she may be seen, right? Her hair can be seen, like for example, in the restrooms of the airports. Somebody can peek from the side and you can actually see through, right? So, or if there is very extreme cold weather and she's afraid of getting sick, she may wipe over the head cover. And we said this is actually in comparison to wiping over the turban, over al-imama. If it is permissible for the man, then it is permissible for the woman, and there is no difference between the man and the woman. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, taking the khimar for the woman off is actually more difficult and more inconvenient than the turban because it covers more. And taking it off and then putting back on is actually more inconvenient and harder than taking the turban off. One quick last thing that I wanted to mention that I haven't mentioned before. Just a side note, I know it's a little bit not off topic, but so that we can benefit from this, ya akhwan. And you've seen me keep on kind of reiterating about this every now and then. Ya akhwan, this is a deen. What we're discussing in here is a deen. It is not to be taken by opinion. It is not to be taken by desire, by my own desire, or by a certain or by a particular person's opinion. As I was actually preparing this, to be frank with you, I ran through the different opinions of the multiple madhab, the four madhab. And subhanAllah, what caught my eye is this. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the major scholars of the four madhahib. His opinion with respect to wiping over the turban, al-imama, is that he didn't allow it, nor did he disallow it. Why? Because he's never seen any evidence to it. He said, if an evidence comes that Rasulullah ﷺ wiped over the turban, then I would allow it. But I haven't seen, I'm talking on his behalf, right? He said, I haven't seen any evidence that he wiped over the imama, so I don't allow it, nor do I disallow it. Now we know that there is evidence, alhamdulillah, several actually evidences in the Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, very authentic reports that tells us that Rasulullah ﷺ did wipe over the turban. So we can say that he is from the opinion of what? That it is permissible because he said so. If the hadith comes, then this is my madhab. The hadith is my madhab, right? He hasn't seen it, but he said if there is such a report, then I would allow it. SubhanAllah, look at the fairness of those great imam. On the other hand, and believe me, when I mention these, ya akhwan, nobody should misunderstand me that I'm actually, putting great imam on the spot. Absolutely not. Wallahi, we hold such a great respect for them. But the point, and I will clarify the point that I'm trying to. On the other hand, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, and may Allah elevate all of their status, the four of them and all the scholars of Islam, elevate their status so high in the Jannah. Ameen. On the other hand, Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, I don't allow it. It is not permissible to wipe over the turban, although there is a hadith that says so. A person now who comes and say, I don't allow it because Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't allow it. But we have hadith. He says, I am on this madhab. Is that acceptable? Is that the right thing to do? Who are we actually asked to follow? Right? Now here we have Rasulullah ﷺ in a great hadith related in Imam Muslim, Sahih Imam Muslim, that says Rasulullah ﷺ did wiping over the khuf and over the khimar. And the narrator of the hadith, he said, al-bayl khimar. Now obviously we know the khimar is for the woman, right? But the narrator of the hadith, he said that the khimar in here, it means al-imama. He explained, he clarified what he meant by al-khimar. Because al-khimar is referred to anything that covers, including the cover head for the woman, right? Al-imama also can be called khimar because it hides the head, right? Now we have report from Rasulullah ﷺ. Are we excused to say no? I follow this imam or this madhab and that madhab. We have to think, ya ikhwan, this is a deen. And let us remember on the day of judgment, who are we gonna be asked about if we followed? Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahumullahu jami'an. May Allah have mercy upon all of them. The answer is, ya ikhwan, right there in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَيَوْمَ يُنَادِيهِمْ فَيَقُولُ مَاذَا أَجَبْتُمُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And mention the day on which Allah will ask them, what have you answered who? Al-Mursaleen, the messengers, alayhim as-salatu was-salam. Not this imam or that imam, with all due respect. So ya ikhwan, we should definitely make sure that we understand who are we to follow. And when the evidence comes, we should say, we heard and we obey. Sami'na wa ata'na. We heard, we learned, and we obey when we submit. This is what Islam is all about. I don't want to take too much time, so moving forward. Any questions, ya ikhwan, before we keep going?
One question. The socks have a hole. How about that?
If the socks are what?
Have a hole.
If it is a small hole, and it is still called socks, right? You can use it and wear it and all of that, then yes. If it is a major, then you cannot actually call it a socks anymore, right? It's completely worn out. No, you cannot make masah on it. Then moving forward, al-ghusl, right? We said al-ghusl it means that to wash something completely, right? And then we said in the Sharia perspective, or from the Sharia perspective, it means that to wash, to use pure water, right? To use pure water to wash your entire body, right? In a specific way, out of worship to Allah Azza wa Jal, as an act of worship. It is not to clean, it is not to cool off in the days of summer. It is to wash your entire body with pure water, ma tahur, in a specific way, right? Which we're gonna see as an act of worship to Allah Azza wa Jal. Is the ghusl ibadah? Yes, al-ghusl is ibadah. Like we saw about the wudu is a ibadah. As we're gonna see about the tayammum is a ibadah. All of them are acts of ibadah, and ghusl is an act of ibadah. Right. We said that the ruling on the ghusl is that it is mandatory when and if one of the acts that obligates al-ghusl exists. We're going to talk about these cases. But when one of these cases that obligates making ghusl, making a body wash, then it becomes mandatory. And we said the proof on that is that Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُبًا فَطَّهَّرُوا, Surah Al-Ma'idah. And if you are in a state of janaba, then purify yourselves. This means that it is obligatory, it is mandatory. And we said that there are all of the ahadith from Rasulullah ﷺ that tells us or explain to us how the ghusl should be performed. All of them indicate that it is mandatory and that it is obligatory. Now we talked about what necessitates, what obligates al-ghusl. What are the cases, in which case that you must do ghusl. We said the first one is, there are 5 cases, 5 circumstances. The first one is the emission of al-mani, of the semen, from its exit with respect to both the man and the woman, the male and the female. Emission of the mani can happen in 2 cases, right? Whether it happens while you are awake or while you are asleep. Is there a third case? That's it. You're either awake or asleep. So it could happen in either of cases. Let's take the case when you are awake. If you are awake and the mani, and then you emit mani with ejaculation, yani in quantities, with desire, with pleasure, right? Then that obligates ghusl. Then you must perform ghusl in that case. And again, the proof on that is وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُبًا فَطَّهَّرُوا. What is al-janaba? Is to actually emit mani with pleasure. That's it. So you have to make tatahhur. It means that you have to actually make al-ghusl. And also the evidence, قوله عليه الصلاة والسلام, لعلي ibn Abi Talib, in this hadith related by Abi Dawood, and the Imam Al-Albani, he judged it as sahih. إِذَا فَضَحْتَ الْمَاءَ فَاغْتَسِلْ. If you ejaculate semen, then perform ghusl. So in that case, ghusl is mandatory. If it is emitted in smaller quantities without pleasure, then ghusl is not required. For example, some people may actually it may happen to them in cases of, sickness. Some sickness may actually cause the person to emit a little bit of semen. It could be sometimes out of extreme cold. Extreme cold weather can cause some people to emit some semen. But that's without pleasure, without ejaculation. It doesn't require ghusl. What if on the other case it happens while you are asleep? Right? We call this wet dream. Or in the Arabic language we call it al-ihtilam. Yani as you are awake, you're not conscious to be able to tell whether there was pleasure or not. So in all cases, if you find traces of semen, water or semen, then you must perform ghusl. Right? If you find the traces, then you must perform ghusl. And Sahih Muslim, when he was asked about the woman, does she require ghusl? And is it obligatory for a woman to take a bath after she gets, nocturnal discharge? He alayhi salatu wasalam, yes, he said yes, if she notices water, which is the discharge. Same thing applies to the man. If you see traces, then you must perform ghusl, right? In all cases. That's the first condition. The second one, which is when you approach your wife with penetration, whether there is ejaculation or not. In all cases. As long as there is penetration, then ghusl is mandatory. And we said this is based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when anyone sits amidst the four parts and the circumcised parts touch each other, then a bath becomes obligatory on both parties, the male and the female, the husband and the wife. The third case is for some scholars, they say in the case of a person becoming a Muslim, converting into Islam, whether from other, whether for the first time or reverting back into Islam after, ridda wal iyadu billah, or apostasy, then he or she must perform ghusl. But we said also that, by reconciling all the different hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we say that this is actually to be understood as a mustahab, not obligatory. Why? Because he alayhi salatu wasallam, in certain cases, he ordered those who converted to Islam to perform ghusl, but in other cases he didn't. So if it was obligatory, if it was wajib, then he should have ordered all of them, any person who converted to Islam, to take a shower, but he didn't. This told us that in certain cases he ordered, in certain others he didn't. That means we said it is mustahab. And then the fourth case where a ghusl is obligatory is death. When a person dies, then a ghusl must be performed, right? And it must be performed other than the case of a martyr who falls in the battlefield. Any person who is other than a martyr who falls in the battlefield must be washed. And we said this is based on the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when his daughter actually passed away. His daughter Zainab, when she passed away, and he alayhi salatu wasallam asked the woman to actually wash her 3 times or 5 times, and he said even more if you see that, and then put in the water some sidr, right? And in the last wash, add some kafur, right? Camphor. And then we said this actually proves that ghusl al-mayyit is mandatory. Also, the fifth case, I guess somehow my papers are mixed up for some reason. Anyways, so the fifth one is in the cases of this is for the woman, right? In the cases of menses or in the postpartum bleeding after delivery of the baby, right? This only happens to the female. And we said that Rasulullah ﷺ was asked about that, and he said that when the menses starts, then stop praying, and when it ends, then make ghusl and then start praying. Right? This shows that a ghusl is mandatory when the period of al-hayd or the menses, right, ends. And likewise, when the period of the bleeding that follows delivery of the baby, right, which we call nafas in the Arabic language. When the postpartum bleeding stops, then that the woman should perform ghusl, right? And also this is evidence from the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jal says فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَا, يعني when they actually make purification from the menses, from the hayd, right, which is done by the ghusl, then you can approach them. Comes out of the body, then you need to make wudu, not ghusl. Wudu is necessary if it is large quantity. Now, moving forward, so we talked about the forms, that it is mandatory to make al-wudu, right? Al-ghusl. Now, how do we perform al-ghusl, right? There are ways of performing al-ghusl, right? The first one, and we say there are two ways. There is the way that is sufficient, that is obligatory, which we call in the Arabic language al-mujzi'ah. Yani, in other words, it is what you need to do to perform a sufficient ghusl, right? And if you miss any of that, then that ghusl is invalid. That's the absolute minimum. Similar to what we talked about while talking on wudu. Remember wudu, we said there is the absolute minimum and there is the recommended complete wudu. Likewise in here. There is the absolute minimum, right? Al-mujzi, al-ghusl al-mujzi, which is sufficient, which is the minimum bare mandatory to remove this major impurity, right? And if you do, then your ghusl is sufficient and is intend to remove that major impurity. So the first step is the intention to intend in your heart that you are removing the major impurity, be it a janaba, be it a menses for the woman, or postpartum bleeding for the woman after the delivery, right? You intend in your heart that you are removing this major impurity with this ghusl. The second step is to actually wash your entire body with water once, with making sure that you rub and you work through your hair, making sure that the water gets to the roots of the hair, right? And you also make sure that the water gets to the places that are hard for the water to reach. For example, the armpits, the back of the knees, right? Places where it may not be easy for the water to get. So you make sure that the water gets all of it all over the body, right? With cleaning the mouth, washing the mouth, and cleaning the nose. Once. That is sufficient. This is the bare minimum. The reason we say that this is the bare minimum is that Allah Azza wa Jal in the ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُبًا فَاتَّهَّرُوا. And if you are in a state of janaba, then purify yourself. And we know that purification is through washing the body. He didn't say anything else. He didn't say that you also have to make wudu. Although it is in the same ayah, by the way. It is a rather long ayah of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah Azza wa Jal says, and when you are in a state of janaba, then tahharu, purify yourself by washing your body. He didn't say that that should include as a wudu as well. He only said that you make wash of the body. This tells us that anybody who washes his entire body, including the mouth and the nose, with water once, it is true to say that that person has purified themselves. It is true and accurate that that person has purified themselves. And that brings purity. That makes that person pure. This is the first form, which is the acceptable, or the form that is mujzi. Related to this, we say that this is an acceptable form of performing or establishing tahara that is adequate for prayers. And we have some more to say about that. The second form, right, of making wudu, which is the complete wudu, and that is to actually also intend in your heart that you are removing the major impurity, whether be it janaba, or be it menses, or be it postpartum bleeding, right? And then the second step is to say Bismillah, Basmala, you say Bismillah. And the third step is to actually wash your hands 3 times. Wash your hands 3 times. And then wash any dirt off of the private part. So you say Bismillah, you wash your hands 3 times, and then you remove any dirt off of the private part. Then you perform your full wudu like you would for any prayer, for the prayer. Your wudu for the prayer, you perform that wudu. The fourth step is to then pour the water on your head 3 times. Again, rubbing through your hair to make sure that it gets to the roots of the hair, right? Making sure that all your hair is covered, is washed, right? And then you wash, then you pour the water on top of the rest of your body, preferably starting from the right side and then the left side, right? Making sure, again, rubbing your body to make sure that the water gets everywhere, to all the parts of the body. Again, the armpits, the back of the knees, all the different parts which may be hard to get the water to get to, you make sure that the water gets to all the parts of your body. So, intention, the complete part, right? Intention, Bismillah, you wash your hands 3 times, you wash any dirt off of your private part, then you make a full wudu, right? And then you pour the water 3 times on your head while rubbing and making sure that it gets through to the roots of your hair, right? And then you pour the water on the rest of your body, starting with the right side and then finishing with the left side. Again, with rubbing through your body to make sure that water gets to every part. Is that clear? No. No. Okay. I like frankness. What is not clear? You make the wudu after you wash your hand 3 times and you wash any dirt off of your private part, then you make wudu. Before the body itself, yes. Before the body. So again, let me just repeat real quick. You establish your intention in your heart that you are making tahara from this major impurity, right? And then for the woman, likewise, after the menses is over or postpartum bleeding is over, right? Then they intend that they are removing this major impurity, right? Then you say Bismillah, like you do for the wudu, right? We said it is not mandatory, but it is sunnah. Remember, we're talking here about what? A full ghusl, full body wash, everything, right? So you say Bismillah, and then you wash your hand 3 times, right? And then you wash any dirt off of your private part, right? Semen or any other, leftover. And then you perform a full wudu.
While you are naked?
Yes. Now, we are not doing this in front of people, right? You are in a private area, right? You're alone, you're in a private area. You're not gonna make ghusl while you are naked, right? And then you may perform your full wudu. And then you pour water on your head while working your hand, your fingers in your hair, so that water gets, making sure that the water gets to the roots of the hair. 3 times. Now you can make less, but this is the full recommended sunnah way of doing ghusl. And then you pour the water on the rest of your body, right? Preferably starting with the right side, finishing with the left side, again rubbing through your body to make sure that water gets everywhere. Water gets everywhere. Is that clear now?
Can I establish salat with that? Can I go for salat with that?
When you perform in such a way, then yes. So the question, this is related to, and this is actually the next thing that I wanted to talk about. And this is a question that gets asked quite often. Now we talked about the 2 forms of performing al-ghusl, right? The minimum and the complete. We said there are 2 ways. Both of them establish purity from that major hadath, from that major impurity. The question becomes, I performed ghusl, right? Now I want to go and pray. Do I have to make wudu? Or that ghusl that I performed is enough? The answer to that, the ghusl that I made is enough. It is a purity from the major impurity as well as from the minor impurity as well. Even if you did the minimum ghusl, that does not include wudu. Remember, in the minimum mujzi form of al-ghusl, it is sufficient to just pour water on your entire body with the intention that you are removing this major impurity and washing your mouth and washing your nose. That's it. There's no wudu in there. Even in that case, it is sufficient as a wudu for the prayer. Why? Because again, we said that Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُبًا فَطَّهَّرُوا. And if you are in a state of janaba, then purify yourself. And purifying ourselves is by doing this ghusl in either form, whether it is the minimum al-mujzi or whether it is the complete. And both of them establish the purity from the major impurity. And if the purity from the major impurity is established, then purity from the minor impurity is included in that. It is covered. And so you do not need to actually go and make additional wudu. You do not need to make additional wudu to pray. Whatever you actually did in the ghusl is enough.
So ghusl is there, you say there are 3 times the water, put the water on top.
Yeah.
So mostly people, 99% people, they are just taking shower in the standing shower.
Yes.
Or shower, running water. So it's the same time you take like a
Well, it could be
over here and 3 times on the left.
as you are working your hair, right? So you work your hair, that's 1 time. And then you rub your hair, making sure that the water gets to the bottom, to the roots of the hair. That's a 2nd time. And then a 3rd time, right? Making sure that you actually water gets to the bottom or to the roots of the hair. That's a 3rd time.
We can do an standing shower. I mean.
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you can either use, do it under the shower. Ghusl is a ibadah, and every ibadah requires what? Niyyah. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. What is your intention from doing that? 2 people are doing the same thing. Both dived into the river. One with the intention to remove the major hadath. The other one is just for fun. That is ghusl, and the other one is not. You might wonder, but they did exactly the same thing. And I should I reiterate the importance of washing the mouth and washing the nose. They are essential part. Without them, it is incomplete. It is invalid ghusl. Because we said, remember when we were talking about the wudu, we said وَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, right? فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إلى المرافق. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق. غسل الوجه, washing of the face, that includes washing the mouth and the nose, because we said the mouth and the nose are part of the face. So similarly, when you make a ghusl, you have to, whether the minimum or the complete, whether the minimum form or whether the complete recommended form, in both cases, in the complete form you're making a wudu, so that's part of it. And if you, in the minimum form, right, the mujzi, right, the bare minimum, you have to make sure that you wash your mouth and your nose, otherwise that ghusl is invalid.
Even though you don't have intention, just by accident you forgot, and then you make minimum ghusl.
No, you have to have an intention that you are removing the major hadath.
No, minimum.
Yes, the minimum.
You have to
have intention as well.
If you forgot. So
if you forgot, you have to repeat.
You have to.
Yes, because that's not a valid. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ.
So what do he mean forgot?
He says, he forgot. He basically, for example, let's say, dived into the river, but he didn't intend that I am actually making a ghusl.
So probably he made it, but as soon as he made the ghusl, he didn't see it. Like someone came to Salat al-Asr and his intention to Salat al-Dhuhr, but he meant Salat al-Asr.
Yes.
So what are you going to repeat Salat al-Asr or not?
لا, it is acceptable if he as he start the prayer, if he corrected his intention, that's fine. No, but I think the question is if he forgot completely that he's making ghusl, صح?
No. If you are making sufficient, first.
Sufficient, the first one.
And you are in hurry, you
Yes.
also go to somewhere, and intention is, you just go there inside and then take shower and immediately you have to make wuzu if you are praying after that.
So you basically washed your body with water, but you forgot that you forgot the intention that you're making ghusl.
Yes.
No, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
So you have to make
wudu.
Again,
No, not only you make ghusl again, because the ghusl was not, you didn't remove the major impurity.
I think what he meant, if I make this the minimum ghusl, does that count with wudu? يعني الوضوء داخل فيه ولا do we have to make wudu?
Is your question that the wudu is part of it?
Valid or not? In minimum ghusl you do, and your intention, you did not make intention by accidentally.
Okay.
And that wudu is valid. We can pray with that wudu minimum or no?
You did not intend that this is a ghusl?
Yeah, it do not intend.
If you did not intend that this is a ghusl, it's not a ghusl and it's not a wudu either. Because it's not a ghusl to begin with.
You have to repeat both.
You have to renew both. To do both again. If you didn't intend that this was a ghusl, just diving for example, or just taking a regular shower, you didn't intend this is a ghusl, it's not acceptable. It's not an acceptable ghusl. You have to make a ghusl again. Part of the ghusl, even if it is the minimum, that serves as a wudu as well. Although the wudu is not part of it. But that's still a purity for the wudu, for the salah.
Is that your question, bro?
Yes.
Make sure to get it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Like if I have the niyyah and I say that after 1 hour, inshallah, I will make ghusl.
Khalas, yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you know that you need a ghusl and you're gonna make it sometime, khalas, you know that. But if you completely forgot, right? You're not even thinking. You're not actually thinking that you're making a ghusl.
Without niyyah, you go in there and take a shower. That means it doesn't.
Yeah.
You have to have a niyyah.
Yes. إنما الأعمال
Once
بالنيات.
you do the niyyah, but at least you have to.
Yes. And this niyyah is actually what actually makes a difference between a tradition, right? Something that you do traditionally, regularly, and between an act of ibadah, right?
Minimum ghusl. If I didn't make wudu,
It is wudu. So minimum ghusl, right? Minimum ghusl. Wudu is not part of it. Performing a wudu is not part of it. Ya akhwan, just to recap, just to drive this point home, I want to make sure that everybody understand. Minimum ghusl is basically barely you just take water and pour it over your whole head, your whole body, I'm sorry. And then you wash your mouth, you blow your nose, you wash your nose, alhamdulillah. You performed a ghusl, acceptable ghusl. And now you can go pray. Now you can go pray. You don't need wudu. Because the purity from the major hadath includes the purity from the minor hadath. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَالطَّهَّرُ. You are now tahir. By doing that, you became tahir. فَالطَّهَّرُ. طيب أنا تطهرت. I purified myself. Now I am tahir. So I can pray. You don't need to do extra wudu.
But when you're doing the tahir, and you're trying to do ghusl tahir, then if you didn't niyyah, say also wudu, both of them at the same time, is that also counts as a wudu without saying wudu?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Okay, you for the major one you're taking, okay, so you're taking from the major.
Yes.
So then you niyyah says, I'm just taking for the major, but you didn't say about niyyah, about wudu.
Yes.
Same time.
That's fine.
If you don't do niyyah as a wudu, if that counts also?
It counts, yes, because you are actually making an intention that you're removing the major hadath. And the purity from the minor hadath, is included in the purity from the major hadath.
Right. Because I heard before, another sheikh said, you have to do the niyyah also for both.
Now, one is if purity, having the intention for the purity from the major hadath includes purity from the minor hadath. Yes, even for the wudu. Because as we're going to see, and I think we're running out of time. What time do we pray Isha now? 8:30. Okay, so we're running out of time. So we're going to cover this next week, inshallah. One thing that most people don't understand or may actually be confused. This is the purity from the major hadath. So if you're making a ghusl to remove a major hadath, that serves as purity for the salah. How about, we're going to talk about, for example, the recommended ghusl. Not obligatory ghusl. For example, ghusl for Yawm al-Jumu'ah. Ghusl for the Eid. Right? Ghusl, for example, for getting into the state of ihram. All of these, there is a lot more. All of these are types of ghusl that are recommended. They're not mandatory. When you do that type of ghusl, that does not replace the wudu. You have to do wudu afterward. You cannot do ghusl, for example, for Yawm al-Jumu'ah and then pray with that. Why? Because that's not purity from major hadath. And it doesn't include as such purity from minor hadath.
The reason I'm asking is because everything is niyyah.
Yes, إنما الأعمال
When
بالنيات.
I'm going to niyyah and I'm trying to do the ghusl niyyah, so that means I only did the ghusl niyyah, but I didn't do wudu niyyah. Because wudu also needs niyyah.
That's fine, but this is included in the niyyah to remove the major hadath.
Because it says when you do wudu also you have to have a niyyah. So if you're doing the purity for the main one, and if you don't do for the wudu, then how that comes? Because your niyyah is only one thing.
What is the requisite for a salat? What is the requisite for a salat? Is it the wudu or the purity?
It's purity.
Purity. How do you achieve that purity? By wudu.
Yes.
When you actually made the intention to remove the major purity, what did you achieve? فَطَهَّرُوا. So you achieved tahara. Right.
But tahara for what reason?
لا ما
I just want to make sure.
Tahara is the state that is required to perform, salah, to make tawaf, to touch the Quran, to recite the Quran, and you've achieved that. No.
But I just want to make sure people clarify.
No problem. Make sure. Fadal.
If I'm holding a baby girl and she urinates on my body,
Yes.
and the ghusl is mandatory.
Not ghusl, but wudu. Yes, because the urine of the female baby is impure. Now obviously you need to clean your cloth and then make wudu. Yes.
When you do wudu and you touch your privates, it breaks the wudu.
If it is without shield, directly. No.
But in ghusl, how is it? Because you are praying afterwards.
Yeah.
But you might touch your privates by taking in the wudu.
But you're actually cleaning your private parts at the very beginning, right? And then you're making the ghusl. So in the recommended part, yeah, but I mean you don't have to touch it. Actually, the water is, being poured. Well, you're using a, piece of, to wash your body, right? So you don't have to actually touch it directly after cleaning it at the very beginning. That's it. According to a lot of scholars, that invalidate, then you have to make wudu again. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Unless you're actually using, those what they call them. Yeah. Yeah, you have to. Or if after you're making the ghusl, you invalidate your wudu by passing gas or anything, while making ghusl or afterward, again, obviously you need wudu afterward, right? If during the ghusl or afterward you invalidated your tahara, right, then obviously you require a wudu. I think that goes without saying. Now, khair. I think let's bring it to an end. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.